Hey everybody, it's Deborah Carter here with Preparation Tech. Today I have an amazing interview lined up with Tammarrian Rogers. And when I tell you that she is just a force of nature and she's a very special person because she has been in the tech industry working as a technologist for more than 30 years. That's right, 30 years. So thank you. You're part of our Black History Month interview series. Let's just get started. Welcome to Marion. Let's
Thank
start
you.
off with you just telling us what you do and how it relates to technology.
Absolutely. Well, it's an honor to be here. I love the work that you're doing. Um, and happy Black History Month. My name is Tamarian Rogers, and I've been in the industry, as Deborah mentioned, 30 plus years. I was at Microsoft for 23 years, and now I am at Snap, makers of Snapchat, in Los Angeles, California. And I've been there a little over 3 years. I'll actually, gosh, I'll be hitting 4 years in September. And so that's been a very fun ride. So currently I am doing a lot of work around inclusion in engineering itself. And I'm excited to talk a little bit about that a little later, but again, really excited to be here and talk to you, Deborah.
Great. Thank you so much. Now, I know that you specialize in software engineering. For people who don't really understand it, because this is kind of targeting high school students, how does software engineering fit into technology in general?
Sure, software engineering is really it's what we call soft, meaning there's several different engineering types of people, types of work, if you will, that can take hardware. So if you think about things that you can, pick up and use, like a clock. Um, that is considered hardware and software. The hardware itself is the case. It was holding the electronic board that has all of the um, integrated circuits that actually talk to each other. And the software itself is what the program is that tells it what time it is and day and night. And it actually has these LEDs that light up and all of that. And so for the software aspect, I am looking at mobile app development, and that is the application that sits on your cell phone that you open and use, and it talks to the phone, it talks to the internet, it talks to Wi-Fi. And so that communication is what we call software. And I have been primarily working in software for most of the 30 years. I've had the opportunity to work with the combination of hardware and software, where at Apple Computer, for example, is working on the actual computers themselves, and how the casing itself held the electronics inside, and
Oh,
also the programming of those devices as well. And that was really fun because it's a very different problem, and it causes you to think beyond just programming, but also how does this actually fit, and what is the customer going to how is the customer going to handle this device, and how is it going to handle heat, and how is it going to handle cold, and how is it going to handle falling over, which is very different than if the customer presses a wrong key and hits enter, and we don't want the application itself to die and they can't use it anymore. So that's where I've been in doing mobile app development for the last 3+ years. And at Microsoft, it was I had an opportunity to work on a whole lot more different software than over the years that I was there.
wow, this is so exciting. So tell us what your typical day would look like. What kind of things are you doing? And also, what kind of technologists and specialists are you working with?
Sure, sure. So is my days are very different from day to day, which is very exciting. I work with technologists that are focused on everything from software engineering, or developers who are actually writing the code. I work with security engineers who are looking at how your experience as a customer is secure, that you have all of the experiences that you have, but you're not exposed to others that might want to get into your device or get into your app. I work with IT specialists who work on the tools that we use inside of the company to do our work. I work with data scientists who think about the data that we retrieve about our customers, but also about the devices that we're using and interpreting what is the message and signals that we're getting so that we can build better experiences for you and more personalized experiences for you. And I work with quality engineers, and these are people that are focused on ensuring that what we build is what we intended to build, but also that it makes sense to our customers, that the experience that our customers are seeking is in fact what we're delivering. And so my days can be it depends on the time of year. At the end of the year, I'm really looking at the strategy for the next year and seeing what is it that we need to do to hit the priorities and goals of the company, and how are we going to go about doing that? What are the resources? What are the people? What are the tools that we need in order to do that? And then there's later in the year, I'm looking at the execution against that plan and making adjustments to make sure that we're still on track. And I'm also mentoring and coaching others, sponsoring others. I'm also looking at how do I help remove obstacles, also looking at how do we help each other determine different alternatives or innovative solutions to problems we run into. And there are partnerships that we have with people outside of the company that I often help to negotiate and partner with. And so it's no 2 days are alike. It's very exciting. I get to work with a lot of wonderful people who are very creative and very curious about the work that we do. And it's a very, very fun space.
Wow. So I have before me someone who obviously loves what they do. I want to know how you got to be Tamarian Rogers. Take us back to your childhood. What kind of child were you? What did you like in school? Who were your role models? How did you grow up?
Oh, that's a great question. Well, I'm an only child, and so I had to take a lot of my own creativity and put it to use. And so I love to take things apart and put them back together. And I love to explore different things on my bike. So riding around the neighborhood and seeing, where different places took me, took different little bike paths took me. I loved riding. I liked sports. I also decided when I was fairly young that I wanted to work with my hands. I loved working with my hands. And so I wanted to go into construction. And I also loved t-shirts such that had words on them that were inspiring or made me laugh or made me think. And so I decided I wanted to uh, run my own t-shirt business as well. And I was very much so, I just was filled with a lot of curiosity, if you will. And and my parents were very okay with me, encouraging me to explore, to feed that curiosity. And I remember my father would often ask me to write a report on something that I was curious about. He said, "Oh, you want to learn a little bit about, how this VCR works? Well, now after you take it apart, here's back in the day we had these encyclopedias that you could actually hold in your
I
hand."
remember.
And he said, "And look it up, and then write a report on what you learned after you read it." And I said, "Gosh, why do I have to write this report?" But it ended up being a really great exercise for me to read and learn, but also to do things by hand, to actually experience the process of learning. And that's where I learned a little bit more about myself and how I learn, what is the best method for me to learn. And it's for some people, it's not always in a classroom setting. Sometimes it's really hands-on, and then when you actually get a chance to touch and experience the very thing that you're trying to learn more about.
Wow. And so from there, I read that you did a bachelor's at Tuskegee And then you did a master's at Stanford. Wow. So a historically Black college, and then
Yes.
Ivy League. I don't know if Stanford's an Ivy League, but it's close if it's not.
Yes.
Wow. So tell us about those two experiences and how they kind of came together to get you to the next level.
Oh, it's a great question. Tuskegee is absolutely my roots. I feel that Tuskegee is home. That's where I got the very foundation that I have used and continue to use in my career. Tuskegee taught me a lot about myself and what's important to me. And I loved the experience I had at Tuskegee because it was really about a community that really wanted to take care of one another, wanted to see each other succeed. We were from different backgrounds, but we were also very similar in how we saw ourselves in the world, as most of us being um, African Americans. And so I just found a rich family in that experience, who really, we held each other and celebrated one another quite a bit. And I went to Stanford and I learned more about the world beyond me. I learned more about how different people work and how being driven and motivated and how that can really have an effect on how you engage with other people in terms of understanding who is best to align with and help you propel, and who is maybe not in that trajectory and that you may not want to continue to work with. And so I learned a lot about the real world through Stanford and how the real world really operates, and the competition and the some of the challenges that are faced when people are kind of trying to work together, but they have different goals and different agendas. Was a very healthy experience. Nothing. I don't regret anything about the Stanford experience, but it's very different. And when I think back on my experience at Tuskegee and my experience at Stanford, and those two combined helped me really understand not only what's important to me and how I operate and what are my values, but also how to navigate the world better, how to navigate relationships, especially in the context of getting things done, producing outcomes, building things together. That's where I learned a lot from Stanford.
So then let's take it to the next level. So you learn all this stuff at Tuskegee and Stanford, then you hit the tech industry. Give us a really short version of your career up until Snap.
Okay, yeah. So I wasn't sure when I left Stanford that I what I was going to do, and I decided that I'd just do some interviews. I went to an interview with Microsoft, and not really expecting to be extended an offer, but it was more of a practice for me to just understand a little bit more about how I show up for interviews and how I can hone those skills for whatever I was going to do. And I had decided right before those interviews that I was probably going to go back to school and study biomedical engineering and go and get a PhD and do more about medical equipment development. But that interview with Microsoft was a game changer for me. I learned a lot about the company and the people at the company and myself during that interview, which was like 12 plus hours. And I ended up joining the company. I expected to be there for about a year and then go to biomedical engineering school. And instead, I ended up experiencing, because Microsoft is so big, I ended up experiencing very different teams and cultures and products throughout my career. And there were several people along the way who saw in me what I did not see in myself at the time, who wanted me to come join them in these different roles and these different groups within the company. And so I enjoyed navigating different teams and got a chance to experience the office products, which a lot of us know as Word and Excel and PowerPoint Publisher. So I got a chance to ship those productivity tools. Then I got a chance to work in services, which is like MSN.com and Bing.com, and learn what a service software is, And then I got a chance to work on platforms, which is the very foundation of the computers that you use. So the operating system, I worked on Windows 8.0 and learned a little bit more about what it takes to build a platform that everybody can use for whatever they want to do, from gaming to um, construction, building, building models, to using Word and Excel documents, and having a platform that supports everyone's needs. So that was I was very, very fortunate to have those experiences because the company was so big, it could offer me those very, very unique experiences. And then Snap is offering me mobile app development experiences. And that's been an extremely wonderful, opportunity for me to learn about yet another space in technology that all of us experience on a day-to-day basis.
So that is so cool. So even though you may not have had a really strong background in mobile, you had the tools, you had the mindset to be able to just shift into that and just to be a quick learner and to get right in. I think that's absolutely fantastic. I have to ask, what has been the hardest challenge? I mean, you've been in the industry for 30 years, and this is just, I cannot stress that this is just not usually people's experience. What have been the hardest challenges? And more importantly, what is your secret superpower that you could last? How have you survived the tech industry?
It's a great question. I have to reflect on this because I think it's not a consistent story, if you will. It's all situational, and who I'm working with, what I'm working on, what are my values at that time, because my values change. And I remember having a conversation. I was at a point that I was ready to move to a different team and experience a different product that I was very much attracted to, and talking to the manager. And my values were, at that time, it was really important to value family. And I asked questions around it. What do you think about family and time? And this manager was very much clear about, well, family is number one. Nothing comes before family. You're not anything if you're not taking care of family first. And so I talked to other people on the team and found that this particular leader was always available, always at work, even on the weekends. And I thought that was odd. So I approached him again and I said, hey, I think the team is great. They really love working on the product. You're always available. And I just can't reconcile how that fits with your commitment to family. And he said, well, family to me is about taking care of them. It's about providing for them. It is not about spending time with them. I don't have enough time. Boom, mind blown. I said, oh, I have to be very specific. I have to be very clear about what my values are. And that has been very, very important in terms of how I chose different teams or different situations to be in, is that alignment. And sometimes I would find out after being in the situation. But for me, I think the two biggest challenges been myself and my self-confidence, and the challenge of really not knowing everything, but wanting to know everything before even speaking at times, before even trying to contribute. And knowing that I myself, it's okay to not know things. It's okay to learn as I go. And that has often been the key, getting into the details when I'm interested in the space. But if I'm not interested in the space, recognizing that and being willing to move on. The other is my network, friends, community, mentors, sponsors. My network itself has been absolutely critical in how I've navigated my career and stayed in this industry. And it's been very important to me to pay attention to the situations where I feel like I'm in survival mode versus thriving mode, because it took me a while to realize that I don't have to live in survival mode. It is not healthy. I am absolutely 100% capable and deserve to be thriving in anything that I'm doing. And that's what I think is important for anyone to realize is that if you visit yourself, you really reflect and think about, am I thriving? Am I giving everything and I am feeling valued and I am knocking it out of the park on all cylinders and enjoying myself at the end of the day, then I'm in right place. But if that's not the case, then really looking at what are the components that are not allowing that to happen. And the other thing that I'd say was a big challenge were definitely bullies. I've encountered bullies in my career who were very much so wanting to take over the space that I owned and wanting to step in and wanting to guide me in a way that wasn't very productive and also in my best interest in terms of growth. And those were the situations that I had to use my voice. I had to take a stand for myself in the places that I felt most equipped and ready. And that was usually pulling those individuals aside one-on-one and being very clear about what was acceptable to me and what wasn't, but honoring what value they brought to be able to get them to listen to me. So it would go something like this: Dan, you have done a phenomenal job in this space, helping us get on track, making sure that the right folks are involved. We've had some great outcomes. Here are a couple of things that I've experienced that I think could make this an even better program with me being at the helm, taking over these particular initiatives. Was when I was able to take these individuals aside and give them an acknowledgement to get them to listen, and then giving them the specific situations that were unacceptable to me and the alternative ways to handle those. They became allies more than bullies. They became friends who wanted me to be successful more than those who were competing, because they saw that I was not this threat, so to speak, but that more or less that I too wanted us to win. I wanted us to have an outstanding experience because we all won. But those were very, very challenging because it required me to take a stand and to have the courage to call people out and make sure that they heard me and be consistent with it, be very consistent with it. And over time, I got better at holding people accountable much closer to the incidents than letting it sit and wondering, should I say something? Maybe not. Maybe that's me. Okay, maybe it's not me. But saying, even if it's not me, this is a learning growth opportunity, and it's okay for me to take this risk. So that is how I have navigated tech over these last 30 plus years.
Wow. So you mentioned before you're a big proponent of diversity and inclusion. Tell us about your activities. I know that you're heading up an organization called Black Women in STEM 2.0.
Yes.
You're probably very active at your company. Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So Black Women in STEM 2.0 was founded a year and a half ago, and it was a group of women who had attended a conference that was called Black Women in Tech. And we wanted to have a group that included women in manufacturing. We knew several women who were also in manufacturing. So the STEM 2.0 is really science, technology, engineering, and manufacturing.
Oh,
And we wanted to just create the space for women to share their experiences, form community, network, but also evangelize other groups that were having these conferences, these opportunities for women and allies to come together and create a space, more of a hub that all of us could go to say, okay, this is where I'm at in my career, and oh, here's this sort of smorgasbord of possible groups that I can become a part of. And so we're in the midst of creating that. It's been an interesting COVID year, but that is a part of what Black Women in STEM. And so at SNAP, I recently became SNAP's first inclusion engineering director. And I'm super excited about this because it's the first time I've seen any company invest in an engineering director to focus 100% on the culture, the engineering culture, how we work together to build the products, but also what we build together. And this is an outstanding opportunity to make a difference in not only the way we work as engineers, the way that and when we think about engineering, what I mean by that is there's a development life cycle that goes from ideation to prototyping, meaning we want to test it out with a subset of customers, to building it to send to the masses and testing it, localizing it, making sure that it's a great experience for whoever you are, whatever language you speak, sending it out and then listening to our customers to see how are they experiencing it. So that whole process, as engineers, data scientists, security engineers, software engineers, all of us, how we work together to ensure that how we're working together to listen to one another and ensure that we're building an inclusive experience for everyone, regardless of where you are, how you identify, who you are. That increases the odds of us really creating those inclusive experiences. And then on the flip side, there's the what we build and creating the space for that creative thinking to come forward, so that anyone in the company, anyone in the engineering organization can come up with ideas of this could be a much better experience if we invested in this. And it could be anything from algorithm bias to how we see each other, accessibility to the camera experience, especially among Black and Brown people. There's an immense opportunity for us all to contribute to what it is we build, and most importantly, how we work together building it to amplify the voices of the diverse set of people who are building the product.
Wow. That is, I've never heard of this, and I will be tracking this because this is a really forward-thinking initiative. I
Yeah,
have one last question,
sure.
and this is, I guess, coming out of the blue, but I want to ask, because I ask everybody, how do you, Tammarrian Rogers, want to be remembered in the Black community, by the Black community? What do you think your legacy is when it comes to tech, Blacks in tech?
Oh, wow. Well, I think I, I want to be seen as be remembered as a great leader who inspired and motivated and served others, who saw in others what they didn't see in themselves and helped them be and become outstanding contributors in the tech space. I want to be seen as someone who could fail openly and recover gracefully and help others see that it was okay to stumble along the way, and it's all about how you get up and keep moving ahead. And I think it's really important to me to be seen as human, to be seen as someone who, even in the worst times of navigating and having a hard time with self-confidence, that she was driven by the hope of having an immense impact, not only in tech, but in the world, in how we all operate together and contribute to one another's lives. And that it was important that that was the driving piece, no matter where I was in my life, in terms of my just how I was showing up at that time, and especially in those darkest moments when the self-confidence was hitting a rock bottom, that I was driven by that commitment to all of us across the world.
Wow, what a lovely way to end the interview. Thank you so much, Tamarian. This has been amazing because, like I said, you have this philosophy, but you're a survivor. I hate to say the word because it sounds really bad, but you have navigated successfully the tech industry for 30 years. Thank you for sharing your knowledge. I look forward to following you and hearing more about what you're doing with inclusion and this whole first inclusion engineering director. I think it's just amazing. So thank you, and I wish you all the best.
Thank you so much, Deborah. I really appreciate your time, and thanks again for all the great work you're doing.